Hello, everybody, and welcome to You Are Wrong #podcast, where we invite people who are wrong. unfiatjaf, who do we have on today?
You? And me?
I didn't invite myself. We have another guest. Normally we don't have guests, and now two in a row we have guests. We ended the year 2023 with Jeremy, and we're gonna start the year 2024 with Gigi.
But the episode was censored.
Was it? Oh, right. Well, it's half censored, so we're gonna uncensor it so everybody can experience.
So he came back after the tennis match to talk some more, or no?
No. So you actually listened to the episode before it
Of
was
course.
censored. Interesting.
Everybody listened to the episode because people get it in their. Everybody who's subscribed gets it into their podcast feed.
Exactly. I have a good podcast app, and it updates immediately, and then I just listen. It's like magic.
It's not fountain.
No.
it's as if the internet by itself is kind of censorship resistant. Who would have thought?
Done?
Yeah.
Well, so the censorship worked because I guess Jeremy just didn't want random people taking clips of the episode and using it to attack him or something. So only the faithful listeners.
We only do that with StarCraft replays, Future.
Yeah, there's big censorship in the StarCraft community. I've experienced it myself.
How?
Someone in a Telegram channel removed a replay clip, a very embarrassing one.
I have
There's no one who ever see that clip, unfortunately. Okay.
I actually have some topics, I think, that I want to discuss. So the one thing is, like, I have my little pet peeve about Gigi's stupid article called
I first kind of want to tell you why Warcraft
free energy.
Bitcoin is time. Bitcoin is time. So we can talk about that and some other stuff. But sure, go ahead. What do you want to talk about, Gigi?
I want to explain to you first why Warcraft 3 is superior to StarCraft 2. But you probably agree.
Then StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
Okay, and in what terms? Like, do we talk general or aesthetics or like anything specific here?
I just heard you shitting on Warcraft 3 a bunch of times, and I wanted to, bring a rebuttal.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I was about to hit you hard with telling you that it's better than StarCraft period, but that's probably not true.
I mean, you are aware that you are in the You Are Wrong #podcast episode, so.
Oh yeah, of course. So I could say that.
For very future.
It would be on topic.
Right.
No, but did you ever play it? Did you ever play Warcraft 3 in a meaningful capacity?
Of course, that's what he does all day. Like
I recently
he even played that new one.
Yeah, but I don't mean solo campaigns. Like that doesn't count.
Oh, that doesn't count. Oh, I don't think I played a lot of multiplayer in Warcraft 3.
All right. Well, then I can kind of understand your opinion. Like, I mean, all campaigns suck, basically. I'm with unfiatjaf. Don't play against computers. It's boring and useless.
Yeah.
But what do you hate so much about the aesthetics? And I mean, you obviously love the Warcraft 2 aesthetics because you nailed all the peon and the ready to work sounds and so on. So you must have heard that a lot. So I assume you played that as well.
I'm like, yes.
There you go.
Grom Hellscream. I love Grom Hellscream. I've explained this before. It's just too cartoony. It's too. There's some silliness to it, like strange lips and I don't know what.
I wasn't able to talk in that episode, but I agree that it's not bad. The cartoon aspect is good because it makes it easy to distinguish the units.
Yes, so it's very functional.
Did you ever play Quake 3?
Yes.
You're aware how pros play Quake 3, right? In terms of graphic settings and so on.
Yeah, they use the neon.
No.
You mean the neon lights?
Yeah, basically like zero texture. Everything is like pink and green.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Like yeah, that's how I see it. So for me,
sure.
aesthetics is like almost unimportant for competitive gaming. And I guess I agree with FiatJaf that the cartooniness makes it easier to see what's happening.
No, but the only reason is that it's because it's 3D. Because you didn't require it. You didn't require that with like sprites.
Well, I don't know. I think this StarCraft, the cartoon version of StarCraft Brood War, I think it's better to play. But I mean, if you're starting
I rest
right
my
now,
case.
if you're starting right now, you should use that probably. It's easier to distinguish the units and so on.
Okay, but
If
then
you already are used to the other one, then it's probably worse.
okay, but then I don't think the Quake thing is a good example because
Why?
because then wouldn't it just be better to replace all the units with shapes like squares and hexagons
Some
and
people do,
circles and then with colors and like all those
That's-
vectors. You take those vectors, you take the most simplified abstract versions of them, and then
Yeah.
you apply that. And then still you can do it better with sprites than in 3D probably. So the whole point is like it doesn't look good, and it doesn't require you. It doesn't look good because they went 3D with it, and I don't think there's any particular reason to go 3D. Especially if you look how
Except
they did
for
it.
Sell
novelty.
more copies. Well, you're not going to make a 3D game. You refuse to sell your game to the consumers that want
Sure.
3D games.
Sure. So so the point is I understand why it sucks, right? But that doesn't mean that it doesn't suck. I played Secret of Mana last weekend.
But it's
no,
better than
no,
StarCraft
not
2.
Secret of
There's
Mana, Chrono
also
Trigger.
3D. That's
played-
the problem.
I played Chrono Trigger. Do you guys know Chrono Trigger?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful. I think it's timeless in terms of its beauty. I think it will stay beautiful forever.
So that's the
Well-
one game that will always be a computer game. So the debate you had a couple of episodes ago is settled. Which computer game will survive forever? It's Chrono Trigger.
It's
Well,
a
maybe, yeah,
Super
probably.
Nintendo game.
What do you say?
It's not a computer game.
It's not?
Chrono Trigger?
Yeah, it's not. It's from the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, okay.
No?
Okay, yeah, okay, right.
I don't get. I don't get
What
what
even is a computer?
It's not a computer, it's
To
an
you-
entertainment system.
So to you, FiatJaf, computer game is only
I
on
thought
a
you were
PC.
talking about the
Yeah.
whole discussion about. Yeah, whatever.
No, I see. So it has to be on PC and it has to be on Windows, I guess. So I guess Bitcoin is a proper
Yes,
computer
Bitcoin
game.
is a proper computer game.
More than Chrono Trigger.
Mass multiplayer. Yeah. Well, that's
Multiplayer
not-
by default.
And then people started making clans, calling them pools and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
If you hate Bitcoin this time, you're gonna hate Bitcoin is a game.
No, I dig.
It's actually
I like Bitcoin as a computer game. I like that one.
all right. No, I'm actually like, because you brought it up before, and I'll let you shit on it for as long as you want. But it's one chapter out of 21, and one is actually looking at Bitcoin through the lens of a game, because that's what it is. It's a voluntary system that you can join. So it is kind of a game that we play in the same sense. That,
It's
you know,
like it's good as a
we
joke.
play
You
games.
don't pull it too
we
far.
play No.
Before you know it, you
there's
start
a lot
talking
to
about
it.
that it's an organism, or that it's like, I don't know, some fungus
I've
shit
wrote-
going on, or
I've
a
wrote about that
consciousness,
too.
or what. I know, it's like all these fucking bullshit things.
I
people
doubt
say.
that you know. I really doubt that you know. I doubt that you've read everything I wrote.
I haven't
But
read
I-
anything except for the Bitcoin is time thing. That's the only one I took the effort to read because everybody was forwarding this shit and referencing, and I was like, okay, I'll read it. And
That
it
was
like,
a long time ago.
And then I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, how can you miss the glaring obvious? You write an
I
entire
think-
you write an entire fucking piece about Bitcoin
I
is
think
time.
it's a nice segue
and
from Chrono Trigger to
never,
Bitcoin is time.
never in the entire piece do you ever ask the question how Bitcoin knows what 10 minutes is.
Of course.
You never
course
in
it's
the
in there.
fucking entire piece. It's so fucking
Of course
stupid.
it's in there. Of course it's in there.
No.
Of course.
Where? Oh.
And you mentioned in one of the episodes that all the Bitcoin nodes have a shared understanding of time, which is untrue, because it's an unsolvable problem because of relativity, and that's exactly what the difficulty adjustment does.
No, it doesn't.
It slows down the tick rate so that you can actually synchronize.
No. Because what it does,
yes.
it uses the 2-hour averaging to solve for that issue. That's the margin that it gives the network to deal with.
Yeah. Why is the margin there? So it rejects blocks that are above or below the threshold, and it's not only because clocks are imprecisely set.
What do you mean? What else?
Let's say Bitcoin's block time is 50 milliseconds. What happens?
No, that's too short to be. That's impractical. That breaks.
No, it's not impractical. It's impossible.
Right, but
because of light speed.
Yes, that's so it cannot be. So it cannot occur in practice. So it's impractical.
Yeah.
The point is that we.
No, no. You don't get me. It's impossible to have a synchronous state. It's impossible.
Yes.
It's not impractical. It's impossible.
Yes.
The universe doesn't work this way. We don't have a synchronous time in the universe.
No, we don't. But we have something that works.
Which is?
The current UTC that works.
All right. Is it trustless?
No, it's reasonably trusted.
How could this be a problem for eCash?
What do you mean? How could this be a problem for eCash?
What if I manipulate my timestamp and I try to sneak my transaction in before yours, or spend money that doesn't exist yet?
Do you mean do you mean a different system than Bitcoin?
By the way, I just looked up the article. It's in there. The timestamp has to be less than the network adjusted time plus 2 hours. It's one sentence of the article.
Yes, but the point is that the whole notion of time is something outside of Bitcoin, right? Proof of work. So proof of work is not proof of work. Proof of work is an indication of or a reasonably trusted indication of work.
No.
Yes.
You don't get it at all.
No,
I disagree so hard.
The problem is that you are. The problem is that you are wrong. Okay, so I'll explain it. I'll explain it end to end, and then set you straight.
I'll explain it with Nintendo games. After that, you just go ahead. I'll listen.
Okay, so the problem is that you it's like how do you achieve consensus on anything, right?
Yes.
In general, it's like how do you conceive?
Yes.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we have, in practical terms, a functioning consensus on, it's time. And I'd argue that the reason that we
because we have independent measuring systems, and also the moon and the sun.
Yes, right. That's like the basis of my argument. There, it's like, well, what
There's
is
a great
actually
Sabo article on that. If you know it.
What kind of article?
The civilization and the measure of time or something. It's I'm not sure. I think you can only find it with the Internet Archive. Sabo removed it for some reason.
The point is that you so you're able to. I'll give the abbreviated version
for those who are listening, because you don't do show notes. It's called A Measure of Sacrifice. You can still find it.
By who?
Sabo, Nick Sabo.
Ah, Nick. All right. So to give the abbreviated version of this is that what do we rely on for time? Right? What's the basis of the data? How do we access the data? And how do we interpret the data? And on those three things, with time, we base it on like celestial body movement, and so
and records and accurate records. And accurate records. If you wake up on a lonely island, you don't know what day it is.
Well, you have to know what place you are, and if you know what place you are, actually.
But you were unconscious for a couple days.
Yes.
And you wake up.
Yes, and if you know what place
it is,
if you know what place you are on the Earth, you actually do know what day it is.
Okay, all right, with sufficiently advanced measuring instruments, but you would still need some reference.
So, but can somebody fuck with the data? Right? Can somebody fuck with the celestial movements? Right? Not likely.
Very hard.
Right. Can somebody stop you from accessing that data, right? Which is basically looking up to the sky. It's also very hard. You can blindfold one person, but can you blindfold? The question becomes: can a king declare it's night when it's day, or it's day when it's night? And he cannot change the planet and the sun. He cannot prevent anyone from looking upwards to see if the sun is shining or not. And it's very hard. It's like very easy to interpret that if the sun is actually shining, it's probably day, right? It's probably not night if the sun is out shining. So and you can upgrade that to some very sophisticated level where you look at the starry night sky, and then you're able to, if you know where you are, and figure out a whole bunch of stuff out in terms of time. So it's those three things that make it what's a good word? I'm losing a good word. But it's very hard to contest, right? There's no reason or way. There's no reason to lie about what time it is, because it's very easily disproven. So the lie doesn't travel, right? Your lie doesn't travel anywhere. So it's just too easy to dispel your lie or contest on any of these things. So it's very easy to coordinate on it. And then if we take that to an extreme, then we're still running into margins here. So you have to. So although we have a shared time, a functional shared time around the world, and with some minor squabbles with time zones or daylight saving or whatever the fuck we're doing, we have something that actually functions, and it functions enough that if you say, well, if I take the average over 2 hours, it's good enough, right? Assuming there is an active network that actually monitors all of this while things are occurring, then you can start to introduce the notion of time, the 10 minutes, into Bitcoin, because that's a pre-existing consensus. Our notion to have a statement about 10 minutes is a pre-existing consensus that is implemented into Bitcoin. So the whole notion that Bitcoin is a clock is stupid, because Bitcoin uses a clock.
Are you done?
Yes.
All right.
And you can, by the way, it mimics. Right, Bitcoin does the same thing, but it mimics the same notion. If you take, so the celestial body movement is something artificial we do with hashing, and then the interpretation of the access to the data is the internet, and that's fairly censorship resistant, so it's hard to block that. And then the interpretation is the fact that you need like node software, right? You need a software version of Bitcoin, or you need to run Bitcoin, which is fairly ubiquitous. So we replicate the same thing we did with time, only now in an administrative system, using the already pre-existing consensus we had with time.
So why don't we use network time protocol like NTP, like all the proof of stake systems do, and we synchronize our clocks basically exactly using NTP?
Because one of the nice things that Bitcoin does is proof of work does three things, has like three functions in relation to time. So it helps deciding the future, like who does the next block. It does that in a way where another way of like doing it with proof of stake or something. There's like a determinism that goes on there. And then the second part is the present, which is also important, is by introducing the 10-minute delay, basically. You give the entire network the time to catch up to what the supposed current now is. And the last one is in relation to the past, where because proof of work is cumulative, it like solidifies the past, you could say. So,
all right.
Right.
I
so
agree
that's
with all of that. So you're basically saying Bitcoin is building up its own era of time in a digital form in cyberspace.
No. Because the reason why I say no is that the timestamp is in the fucking header.
Of course, I know all that.
Yes,
and
it's stupid to me.
I'm very clear about this in the article.
It's stupid to me to.
No. Like I'm really trying to. You are completely misunderstanding what I'm writing in Bitcoin is time, and I'm trying to make you see it, hopefully.
No, okay, so
And
my
Jeff, feel free to interject.
my interpretation is basically that what you argue boils down to I can define time as a sequence of moments, and because a blockchain is like a sequence of blocks, oh my god, mind fucking blown, Bitcoin's time. That would be my.
Did you read the article?
A long time ago.
All right, fair enough. I'm gonna try to bring the Nintendo out now. So everything you said is correct, and if you actually rewind and listen to what you said, you used, past blocks as the past, and what is the now for the nodes of the network, and the future is undetermined, but somewhat how deterministic. We can figure out who puts the next block into the chain, and so on and so forth. And so one of the functions of proof of work, I think that's also what you wanted to mention, is that it also acts as a tiebreaker, and it is deterministic in some sense, but it's you need which path of the future is the correct one will resolve itself eventually in a fair manner, which is also important. So basically, because the reason why I say this is important, and you argued about this in past episodes as well, like what does Bitcoin actually do and so on, and it basically it outsources the problem of monetary policy back to nature. That's what it does. Like we used with gold. We use gold because nature takes care of the monetary policy. And Bitcoin is a return to that. Like nature takes care of creating the Bitcoin, basically. And Bitcoin it has, of course, the nice property that you can teleport it. And that's the sum of it all.
Can I inject here? Or because
you can.
Because I don't understand why you drag in the monetary policy. That could have been. There are like 1,000 possible monetary policies that you could have implemented into Bitcoin.
The important thing is that you need to bring coins into circulation in one way.
Okay, all right.
Monetary policy.
Yes.
All right.
So, yes.
So that's in the bootstrapping phase of the network.
Yes.
That's also one of the uses of proof of work, but not the only one.
Yes. True.
Yeah. That's why I also agree with you guys with you in particular when you say, we shouldn't call it mining because, Bitcoins aren't actually mined. And that's what I mean when I say Bitcoin is time. Bitcoins are obviously issued over time. That's why we have the halvings every 4 years and so on. Okay, you're still with me?
Yes, but I don't see...
Bitcoins are not mined in the sense that you dig them out of the ground
or
out of a digital ground, because then if you would dig twice as hard, you would produce twice as much Bitcoin. It's not how it works.
Correct.
All right, good. I don't want to lose you. Like all these steps of building up the argument are important. All right. So one of the main issues, like I also would like to point out that a lot of the citations in the Bitcoin white paper are about timestamping and so on. And so people have tried all these things for a long time, and we have these hash chains of things and hashing chains together to prove what came before and what came after. And so time is a construct, and also all our timing devices and calendars and so on are used to define sequences of what came before and what came after, and to try to plan for the future and so on. Would you agree with all that? Like
yes.
Clocks and watches and so on.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So when I say because a lot of people read the headline Bitcoin is time, and they assume what I'm saying is that Bitcoin is money and money is time and those kind of things, and time is money, blah blah blah. It's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is Bitcoin does and also has to build up its own arrow of time in cyberspace, because it cannot rely on what is in computer science lingo called wall time, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Wall time doesn't work for what it's trying to do, because you can cheat it too easily. Are you still with me?
No, because Bitcoin does use.
You can't use regular. No, but it uses it only approximately.
It actually puts it. Yes, and it puts it into the.
Yeah, but it doesn't determine.
But
it doesn't determine. But it doesn't determine which block came first. That's why blocks can go in reverse in terms of timestamp.
Right. Well, because within margin it determines, and because of the margin you can have the.
But the timestamp isn't responsible for the order, and there's a reason for that, a good reason for that.
It is
because it would.
I'm not saying. Of course,
are you getting what I'm saying? No. Please, let me repeat and shut up for 2 seconds. Let me repeat and then just say yes. You will find many blocks in Bitcoin that have a lower block height, and then the block buries the other one.
Yes.
And if you look at the timestamps, it looks like the higher block is actually older than the lower block.
Right.
Okay. Why
Yes.
is that? Why don't you just use timestamps for the order?
No, because it allows for the margins. So
No, why? We could just do like proof of stake and use NTP, and everyone has exactly the same timestamps down to the, basically almost millisecond. And with, it would still work for blocks. Is 10 minutes not enough for light speed on Earth? 50 milliseconds is what we're talking about.
Well, it's less efficient for miners, at least, because you get a higher orphan
It's
rate.
not about efficiency. Well,
Right.
you could also cheat it very easily, no?
Yes. So that, but
There
that's
you go.
why. Yes, but that's why we have margins, and it's
No,
because
that's not why we have margins.
we do.
Because you could cheat. No. We have the margins for the difficulty adjustment for nothing else. Because you could cheat the order by just using timestamps. Okay, the timestamps are irrelevant for the order. The margins are only here that we have.
But
And
they're
now
not-
comes the
they're not
now the
irrelevant
Nintendo.
for the order.
No, they are not irrelevant.
They are
Again?
relevant for the order. They're not irrelevant for the order. You couldn't count down. You couldn't count down in Bitcoin. Bitcoin couldn't count down in time.
No. Bitcoin has no. Because it's probabilistic. It's not very usable for future time.
No, my point is that the timestamp is relevant for the order because you couldn't count down the timestamp over time, or you would like get negative 10 minutes. Maybe you can adjust for that. I just don't see. We do have a margin within time of like the 2-hour average whatever thing. So that allows fuckery because there is an incentive for miners to fuck with time, right? So
Yes,
there's an incentive
there is.
for miners. Yes, so
Not
there's an
only for
incentive-
minus, but yes, yeah.
Yes, so there's an incentive for miners to fuck with time to make it look like they did it. Oh, I have to say it right. They did it longer than they took longer than they actually did.
Why
So
do we?
to manipulate
There's a
the
reason
difference
why.
of
There's a
difficulty.
reason why we mine in the first place, and it has to do with time as well. Because you cannot rely on wall time for the order of the things in
Yes.
a trustless way.
I'm not-
That's why
I'm
proof of
not- I'm not-
stake
I'm
relies
not-
on trust.
I'm not arguing against like proof of work and difficulty adjustment and that kind of stuff. I'm not arguing against it.
Okay.
I'm just.
All right.
I'm
I
arguing.
think we're still on the same page. I'm gonna bring out the Super Nintendo now.
All right.
All right. You talked about emulators in the past, so both of you know what emulators are, correct?
Yes.
All right. Good. So we have a system that brings new coins in circulation, okay, and it tries to do that fairly. All right.
Yes.
So you cannot just do a random number generator of all the participants and distribute them in 10-minute intervals because people will cheat the timestamps. Is that fair to
Yes.
say?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's what proof of work solves as well. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the problem is wall time cheating. Okay. That's why you can. Okay. There's two things. You cannot synchronize the clocks of a global network perfectly. It's impossible because of relativity. So you will always have about a 50 millisecond threshold, even more because of routers and so on. But just going back and forth with light speed, it's impossible. It's an impossible problem. First of all. Second of all, people would cheat because if there is time involved in actually the creation and distribution of coins, people would cheat the timestamps. And also beyond that, because if I can sneak my transaction in before yours, or if I can broadcast my new value block before yours, and so on, it's all, timestamp fuckery will always give you an advantage. All right, okay, you're still with me, okay?
Yes.
All right, good.
Well, of course
All
I'm
right,
still with
so
you.
what-
You're explaining why we need like
Yeah,
proof
I'm
of work and
trying.
difficulty adjustment.
I'm trying to explain to you. Here's what I'm trying to explain to you, and please don't interrupt me because
Okay.
I now have a million things in my head. So what I'm trying to explain to you is, Bitcoin actually takes our wall time as rough measurements of what the time actually is, and it creates its own digital arrow of time in cyberspace, and it slows down, in emulator speak, its own tick rate so that it always is approximately 10 minutes to wall time, and we can't cheat it. And that's what it does. And that's where the emulator comes in, because the thing that we are using to determine scarcity is compute. in the Bitcoin universe. And it's the same thing with emulators. That's why all emulators have software breaks. Otherwise, your Super Mario would run at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. And if you have old emulators, you can actually remove the software break, and then you can play Super Mario at like insane speed, because it goes as fast as the tick rate goes, because they use tick rate to measure time in like a, SNES or whatever. Does everything I said so far make sense?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So if you use an actual scarce resource like compute to generate new coins, how do you keep the coin generation constant? How do you introduce a monetary policy? How do you slow down our computers?
Well, so how Bitcoin does it, right? It has this network of there are all these nodes that are listening for blocks, and it comes in. You have a proof of work requirement. The proof of work requirement is the difficulty, and then because everybody's watching these blocks coming in real time, they
what. Well, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
So because this is the point for the 2 hour margin that we have is because we are all aware of what the time is. You are able to fuck with it, but you're only able to fuck with it within certain margins, right? So, and the only reason that we even have those margins is because we already have like something reasonably functioning in the first place. That's my point.
But again, the only reason why we have the timestamps in there is to keep the tick rate of the Bitcoin network constant at 10 minutes.
Yes.
And it's adjusted every 2016 blocks,
but
which is roughly 2 weeks.
Do you agree that
don't just don't.
Okay.
And the reason why there is a margin is because, and it's network adjusted time, by the way, and network adjusted time only takes more or less accurate timestamps into account in the first place, plus minus 2 hours, and everything else gets rejected, it gets rejected by the network. If the timestamp of your block is way too new or way too old, it gets rejected. So miners have an incentive. The whole network has an incentive to set their clocks basically right, But because of all the things I mentioned before, you don't have a benefit of cheating it. The only thing you can do is drift the time slightly if you are a large cabal of miners that want to do that, like again back to 51% and so on. But Bitcoin, in its essence, assumes that most people are good because that's how Bitcoin works. Like most people won't cheat the system because it's more profitable to play by the rules than to cheat the system.
Yes, but my point would be that it also assumes that we already have an existing notion of time, or existing consensus on time.
Yes,
and that the crux of the crux of Bitcoin is Nakamoto consensus, and Nakamoto consensus is like using that consensus on time in order to establish a context for work, or quote unquote work, right? The hashing that we do, and setting a difficulty, because it's relative to whatever compute effort is put into the system, right? And is made known.
But again, like it builds up an arrow of time. That's what it does for itself to achieve synchronization. And the only reason why it uses wall time is to slow itself down so we don't go out of sync. That our human wall time and the Bitcoin internal time doesn't go out of sync too much. That's the only reason.
We are in agreement, only not for the part where you say that it builds its own time. It's like, well, it creates an order, right, of block 1 and then 2.
Yeah,
and then
you haven't read the article, or if you have read it, you haven't understood it, because I'm very explicit about this, and I'll just read one paragraph. For Bitcoin, the fact that our human timestamps are imprecise doesn't matter too much. It also doesn't matter that we have no absolute reference frame in the first place. They only have to be precise enough to calculate a somewhat reliable average across 2016 blocks. To guarantee that a block's meat-space timestamp is only accepted if it fulfills the following criteria, and so on. And then I go into the network adjusted time part and so on and so forth. I'm very explicit about what is an arrow of time in the first place, and Bitcoin does build up an arrow of time, just like we do with history and records and everything else. And the reason why we have the difficulty adjustment is that Bitcoin would run away from us until it won't work anymore. Because if you don't have the difficulty adjustment, all coins would have been generated already a million times over, you know? And also, like if you don't slow it down, block time, okay, wouldn't be 10 minutes. It would very quickly fall under 50 milliseconds, and the whole consensus would be impossible. It would be physically impossible. And so you need to keep it at a constant rate in terms of time to have something to make consensus possible in the first place. And so what the difficulty adjustment does, is it keeps kind of the emulation engine in check in a trustless manner. And what the timestamps do, that's basically the basis of your criticism, is, it has timestamps. Yes, it has timestamps. And I think Dhruv Bansal was it who phrased it basically in a way that miners get paid to we pay miners to provide more or less reliable timestamps. It's a decentralized timestamping service in some sense, and that's also accurate. You know, like that's what they do as well. You know, they also do transaction ordering and blah blah blah, and you know what gets included and whatnot and so on. But yeah, that's about it. But the Bitcoin network itself, again, doesn't care about this timestamp except for the difficulty adjustment. The difficulty adjustment is only there to keep the emulation engine, to keep your emulator running at a pace so that it makes sense for us.
Okay, but Gigi, at
Does
what
all
pace?
This make sense?
Yes, but what pace does it run?
10 minutes.
Yes.
One block every 10 minutes.
Yes. So.
But that's also that's completely untrue. It's like on average.
On average, right? Sure, on average.
Yeah. But it doesn't. You are aware that it doesn't use any except for the difficulty. Like to.
The point is that it does use human time. Okay, go ahead.
No, not at all. Not at all. Last block came 8 minutes ago. When is the next block due?
When is it on average? What is it? 10 minutes.
Correct. So how can this be? Isn't it using human time, and you could just say 2 minutes and be done with it?
No, the point is that it what I mean was it binding itself to human time, right? It binding itself to like the time of this universe, or the time it takes this universe to calculate things, instead of running a simulation and able to speed up, right, the model and the iterations of the model. So it because that's the problem you describe. It's like, okay, it needs to be bound by this time experience that we are in, right? Instead of anything, because it's completely artificial. We in time here is bound by these celestial bodies, right? You cannot move something faster, or depending on the amount of energy and etc. It's like work. So
all right, I'm in agreement. I'm just I guess my main argument boils down to you didn't read my article, because I'm gonna read you another paragraph. The difficulty to mine a new Bitcoin block is adjusted to make sure that the thin thread between Bitcoin's time and our human time remains intact. Like clockwork, the mining difficulty readjusts every 2016 ticks. Again, back to the emulator, gaming, Nintendo ticks.
yes,
The goal of this readjustment is to keep the average time between ticks at 10 minutes. It is these 10 minutes that maintain a stable connection between the physical and the informational realm. I mean, that's, convoluted language, but I hope you get what I mean. Consequently, a sense of human time is required to readjust the ticks of the Bitcoin clock. A purely block-based readjustment wouldn't work, since it would be completely disconnected from our human world, and the whole purpose of the readjustment is to stop us ingenious humans from finding blocks too fast or too slow.
hence it uses a clock.
It does. I never argue it does not.
Right. So therefore,
that's a paragraph of the
Right,
article
right,
you're criticizing.
right. So then itself, it's like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a clock. It uses a clock, and because it's not time, it uses time.
No, it builds up. It builds up the era of time. It builds up the era of time in the digital realm, and the construct, the informational construct of Bitcoin, the blockchain itself, is an era of time. It is a history of events.
Yes, it's a history of events. I agree with that.
That's made up of purely digital information that has
Yes.
meaning to us, because we can see that so much proof of work went into it, and so you can't cheat it. There's no way that anyone was able to cheat that.
Yeah, so it has meaning to us if we have some, because there are a lot of things like with Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
it has meaning
But
to
in one episode, you said we have, Bitcoin relies on our global view of time,
Yes.
and that is just completely wrong because there is none. So it solves this problem. It solves the problem that there is no global view of time. We have a very imprecise view of time globally. And if you would extend the horizon, like what's the global time in the Milky Way galaxy? No, I'm serious. I'm fucking serious. That's a very hard problem that Bitcoin solves.
No,
It really is.
So it doesn't. Right? It doesn't. It doesn't solve that.
Of course.
But it doesn't solve it for the universe. It doesn't even
No, it
solve
solves
it
the
to...
core. It from the view of Bitcoin flattens space-time basically. It doesn't deal with relativistic bullshit.
Of course it does.
If you would extend Bitcoin, where does Bitcoin work? Only around Earth, right?
No, only around computers. Machine. It's a machine. So it exists. So I like. What was it you said? From Bitcoin's perspective, it's like there's no from Bitcoin's perspective.
I think Fiat-Jeff already fell asleep.
Are you a Fiat-Jeff?
He's probably not. He left.
Oh, he left.
He left a long time ago.
maybe you only heard robot voices.
There we go.
Where? What did he?
That's perfect.
Oh, he can't hear us. Can we go somewhere else? When was this? That was a half an hour
20
ago.
minutes ago. Yeah, there you go. All right, perfect.
Well, I'm like arguing semantics, right? You are aware of that.
No, not at all. Like, that's not semantics at all. Like, why? What? Okay, I'll just. I'm sorry, Fiat-Jeff, for getting sidetracked. Have a good night. And so Fiat-Jeff is not coming back. So this is just
Or maybe
constant is time. That's what it is. So why would Bitcoin work on Mars if we colonize Mars?
And it would also run on you mean now? So we go from this context and we go to Mars. If Mars wants to rely on
Elon finally sells X.
Yeah, we go to Mars
now,
and we
2 billion
colonize it.
and we
Yeah.
Yeah,
If Mars wants to rely on what Earth is doing, or if
people
Mars
set up a Mars colony and start mining on Mars.
If they want to
what
rely
happens to
on
Bitcoin?
the fact that Earth is like mining Bitcoin, then they can use it.
Can they? What about Pluto?
Well, the same thing,
Does-
I guess. If they rely on Earth running Bitcoin,
How
they
can you
use it.
mine a block on Mars or on Pluto? I'm just picking Pluto because it's the easy example because it's further away.
Oh, that's my
Mars
point.
is like
You
8
don't.
minutes away.
That's what I said. You don't. You rely on Earth doing that. Then you can use Bitcoin for whatever you want.
All right. Why is that?
Because the latency is too big between those two places.
All right. How would you fix it?
To increase the slower the block time.
All right. Everything correct. Why does it work?
Why does it work? Is that what you
Let's say we want to include Mars and we increase the block time to, let's say, an hour. That would work, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I trust you on the calculations.
It's like 8.
I've never put a Wi-Fi dish on Mars for its worth, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Let's take a day. It's long enough for sure. So we have a block time of a day.
What I'm actually more interested, I like the thought experiment that I'm interested in. It's like, how long would you have to do it if you want to run Bitcoin in like medieval times with carrier pigeons and monks?
There is TCP/IP over carrier pigeons, so
what-
it could work in theory.
What the that would be. You do so first. So as a file layer, you use pigeons in order to run TCP/IP in order to run Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's RFC 1149. So there we go.
I don't know. Maybe you can just scribble the entire block on a piece of paper that you can roll on the pigeon. That might be faster. But it's like, okay, but what? Like, And what kind of
I
function?
had so
would
many
they-
other things to talk about. I'm really sad that unfiatjaf left, and we didn't know this.
He comes back.
I
He
got
comes
lost.
back.
I got lost in the time debate. No, I don't think he comes back. I think he went to sleep.
He's not. I don't think he went to sleep. Oh, who knows? I don't even know what time it is over there, but it's probably not bedtime for him at least. Maybe
well.
have you tried any of those links? I'm gonna try
But-
one of the links.
Let's see. I didn't.
Maybe he's still there waiting.
I doubt it.
I also doubt it.
Uh,
I'm
almost-
asking to join. No, I need to
I-
ask, so probably not.
Very
a shame.
understandable. I was close to leaving as well. Wait for moderator. What? Anyway, so the point is, that for Bitcoin to work, you need ticks to keep in emulator speak. I mean, I'm mentioning this towards you because you actually know what this means when I say this, right? Like, you have a tick and the whole game updates.
Yes, that's it. You have a clock in a computer in order to.
No, a tick. Oh my god. We're back to square one.
Are we?
Yeah, I feel like
Why?
it. Yeah.
Why? Why were you back to square one? You put a clock inside a computer in order to make a distinction between high and low, or make a distinction at least, and then you run the circuit. And then on the end, and depending on
Clocks
what the
don't
chip
work
does-
in distributed computing. If you have asynchronous processes, you need something that synchronizes them.
Yes, I don't disagree. So we're not in disagreement on all the why all this stuff is necessary. That's not the point. My point is that I have objection in calling it time or calling the thing you produce while you're using time. You're taking a clock, and you take the thing that we use the clock for is like time, and you infuse it into this thing that you're doing.
All right.
And then you call the result also time.
Would
I
you
think that's
agree that
silly.
Jupiter has its own time?
Hmm?
Would you agree that Jupiter has its own time and it's different from Earth time?
Well, ultimately, like depending on
black
how you
hole has-
depending on how
if
you
you're
interpret.
if you're orbiting a black hole, you have a different time than on Earth, right?
Yeah, so like depending on how you'd interpret relativity, yes, then yes.
Okay. My point is that view Bitcoin as a celestial object with its own time, and the difficulty adjustment is what keeps us in contact with Bitcoin. But Bitcoin has its own sense of time, which is block height, basically. Which is also what you said in your own description, which is, the nodes have to decide what is basically now and what is the future with,
Yes.
the future blocks. And that's also how the future is decided, because when you have two valid blocks found, quote unquote, at the same time,
Yeah,
but
so those
because
are
there is
functions.
the same time that's
So-
undecidable. It's undecidable which one is the correct one, and so how does Bitcoin decide it? If you could just use timestamps, then it would be very easy, right? But you can't.
Yes, but nobody's. I'm not. But the difficulty adjustment uses timestamps.
Yeah,
So
I
you
agree.
don't
That's
just-
what
you
I
don't-
wrote in
you
the
don't-
article many times.
Yes, you don't just use timestamps.
All right, I'm
you
gonna
use-
repeat it again because we're not done. I'm not gonna shut up until you fully 100% completely agree with me, because you are entirely wrong. Also in terms of terminology. And so what Bitcoin does, it has its own sense of time, and it builds up its own arrow of time. And that's the only one it cares about. It uses human time for our convenience, basically. In the sense of the difficulty adjustment that we stay honest in the sense that we, the difficulty adjustment exists so that we can cheat, basically.
Yes.
Good.
Wait, the difficulty
But-
adjustment. The difficulty adjustment is in order to account for fluctuations in effort.
And why would it need to do that?
Because there is an incentive.
Cheat.
Yes, because there's an incentive. I don't know. It's only cheating if you say what the rule is, and you break the rule, right?
The rule is no one can give themselves money. No one can print money out of nothing. No one can spend money that they don't have.
Yeah, for that you don't need all this, right?
Cheat.
Because the rules of the system, they are maintained by the
No, that's the rule of money. That's why we use gold. That's not the rules of Bitcoin per se. That's the morality of money, basically.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
And so we always want to cheat that, because humans always want to have something for nothing.
Yes.
And that's why the difficulty adjustment exists.
Yes.
And the way to cheat it would be, and that was the problem with everything before the difficulty adjustment, with all the, Hashcash, for example, had the problem that if you mined Hashcash with an old computer, it got worth less over time. Like your coins that you generated with your 3 whatever Pentium 1.
But what are you arguing? What is it you're arguing? Because I'm very clear on what I'm arguing. It's like what my objection is. It's like the fact that you're using time in the thing. So if the fact that you're using a clock for me makes it silly to call the product a clock.
A clock and time are two different things. Clock is a measurement device for time. Time is a different thing.
Yes. Okay. So then, calling Bitcoin time. So you're using time. The fact that Bitcoin is tied to time. That's the thing that we're doing.
No, Bitcoin is. I think I explained 3 times already why it's tied to our world time. But it is actually creating time for itself. It is creating an arrow of time for itself. It really is doing that.
But okay, what do you mean by for itself?
So that it has an unmistakable reference towards the present and the past and also the future.
You mean the block height?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a chain of events. I give you that, but I still don't see why the thing itself is time.
That's what time is, right?
No, and that's why I started out with. It's like you can define time as a sequence of moments, and blockchain is a sequence of moments, and therefore.
But they also have to be irreversible.
That's what I said at the start.
That's also why it has to be irreversible. That's another thing. It's not only a sequence of events. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is not time because you can skip it.
Is a book time?
No.
It has pages from 1 to 2, 3, 4.
No, but again, you can skip it.
No, because then you skip the story.
The future is not undetermined.
You skip the story. Well, it's already written. Sure.
But you also
But it's past, right? Then it's a piece of history. Then maybe then a book is also time.
If you can, all right. Why is it that, for example, I'm gonna get really weird now. I mean, we talked about relativity a bunch already, right?
Yeah.
So time goes at different speeds depending on, how close you are to mass and how fast you go and so on, right?
Yes.
All right. So first of all, for our listeners, just to drive home the point, that throws the concept of a global shared time or a universal shared time completely out the window because it doesn't exist. Time goes at a different rate on Jupiter than it does for us. And time goes at a different rate for people that travel close to light speed, for example. Right?
There's no
Did you leave
disagreement
as well?
there. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. What's also interesting is on the other side of the physics insanity spectrum is if you have events that are not really linked together, like with quantum eraser experiments, it is as if time doesn't exist and nothing really happened. So you can have, like, the concept of causality basically doesn't make even sense anymore. So basically what an arrow of time is a link of causal events, all right, that can't be undone and that can't be predicted. Are you still with me?
That's what you mean. So
that's what I mean.
Yes,
so
but
it builds up an arrow of time.
Yes, okay, and my point.
So you can't change the past. You can't change the past in Bitcoin, at least not easily, like really not easily.
Right.
And you can't predict the future.
Right. So my point would be
that's what time is, and purely in the digital realm, basically. There is a link to the physical, and there's a link to all time, and so on. But the outcome is a purely digital thing that you can look at, and it's in the purely digital realm that it builds up the arrow of time with many tricks that uses humans basically to create the next block and so on and so forth. But I think you understand me now in my argument. So I'm happy. I'm very sad that FiatJaf left.
But I'm not.
I'm happy.
I'm still not.
I'm happy that you said, that's what you mean. So that's all I needed.
Okay, but my objection still stands.
Your objection is about the vocabulary used in the very clickbaity title.
Right. Basically, I
but
guess so. Yes.
I have a defense for that as well because I have 21 of those, mostly drafts. But I also, I've published a bunch of those, and that's the only one that people either liked or hated. But I also wrote Bitcoin is an idea, Bitcoin is magic internet money, Bitcoin is digital scarcity, and so on. I wrote a lot about Diablo 2 in the digital scarcity one. So.
Really?
Yeah.
There was one. I still want to have a conversation with what's his name? I think René Picard. I think that's the one. He also played Brute War. But we had a short conversation about pathfinding, and the inspiration of like pathfinding for Lightning, that they get from what they did, the solutions that they found for pathfinding in real-time strategy games.
All right. But
apparently
no one will ever set the base fee to 0, so it won't work, right?
Do we need a base fee of 0? I don't know. I think
for René's approach to work, yes.
The thing with I feel with like the fee rates is like we have the two things, the two fee rates, and I'm not sure. I guess we'll figure it out. What reason there is. At least people have the option to tinker around with like two things. But I have no idea as to what is actually smart in terms of like what the economics of that should look like.
I guess we don't have to. We don't have to figure it out because Lightning is doomed at a failed experiment anyway. Right?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is the reason. This is the reason that I wanted to talk about the What Bitcoin Did episode.
All right, hit me.
Because you said you don't listen to it. I do. I do for the most part because it's like one of the biggest Bitcoin podcasts, or maybe the biggest. I don't know. And the audience, it's like very much geared to lowest common denominator audience, let's say. And a few episodes ago, like a while ago, Peter started to like ask the question of basically in relation to UTXO scarcity. It's like, can everybody actually use Bitcoin? And it popped up a couple of times. It's like, can actually use Bitcoin? And he never had like a satisfying answer. And he started talking about it more and more, and they also discussed it in this episode with Alan Farrington and Eric Yakes. Because apparently they wrote an article or something, but I didn't find a link, so I don't know. Or a paper.
I'm pretty sure this podcast does excellent show notes, though. So.
Oh, yes. You can find everything in our show notes.
But you don't do show notes in general, so you try to find the paper without looking at the show notes because you don't believe in show notes. Is that it?
I believe in Fiat Jeff's description of the episode. That's the only thing I
Alright.
believe in. And then
All right, awesome. I mean, I know Alan's work reasonably well, I would say, and yeah, I mean, it's a tricky problem. It's not only that. I mean, what people actually mean when they say there aren't enough UTXOs is exactly related also to what we talked about, because it's not only that, like, what do you mean when you say there aren't enough UTXOs? Like there's an infinite amount of UTXOs basically.
well,
But
if
the
you
problem
have
is-
the patience for it,
Yeah, but the problem is that there's only one new block every 10 minutes, and blocks are limited in time and in space.
right?
So that's the issue. And so if everyone wanted to move their Bitcoin also at the same time, it's completely impossible. That's why we have, the fee market and so on. The block space-time market.
And it's also why we need CTV. So I think that's one of the. I think the secure to back. I think he eventually called it different, but the whole secure to back thing. I think it's so it touches on such an I think it's an elegant problem, right? It's not an obvious problem. Is the bandwidth of Bitcoin? It's the mutation rate of Bitcoin within Bitcoin, and that you can imagine is like, okay, if there is an event where a lot of people want to, if there is an event that causes somebody to want to move their Bitcoin or close their contract or whatever it is that they're doing with Bitcoin, that the odds that other people are reacting to the same event in the same way is are reasonably high, especially depending on the event. So you're gonna get events where almost everybody wants to do it and you can't.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be a major clusterfuck, right? If we're hyper Bitcoinized and the whole entire Earth is like an economic crisis, and everybody wants security, so they close their contracts where they run some risk or have to do something, and they're like, no, I want to have like my own UTXO.
Yeah, that's also why,
cold storage thing.
Again, I can only I can't I can't speak to anything here on this topic, but that's why again, the only thing I'm fairly familiar with is Alan's view on those things, and I think I agree with him that that's why, and he wrote about this for a long time now. That's why Bitcoin has to and needs to financialize, and because there is no way that, again, it comes back to what does Bitcoin actually do? It outsources the problem of monetary policy to nature, and it produces something that can be teleported, but it can't be teleported at an infinite rate. So you need to have different solutions to this problem. It's like not everyone can be a first class citizen in Bitcoin. That's
right.
That's out of the question. But I mean, and I'm again, like I can only speculate about what they would propose as a solution, and I guess it's a combination of Lightning and Fedimints and
Yeah, it's stuff like that.
Cash
Yeah.
and those kind of things that basically is similar to the financial abstraction that we had previously, but with very different trust assumptions and with very different dynamics. Because for example, in the Fedimint system, you can actually run the bank meaningfully, for example, and you still, because the thing that you need to do, because blocks are scarce in time and space, is the only thing you can do to solve this problem is to batch. That's the only thing you can do. So Lightning channel is a form of batching, for example. You batch many transactions into one opening transaction on chain and one close transaction on chain.
I don't necessarily think I'm not sure if I agree, or I'm not sure if I like the looking at a payment channel as batching smaller
Alright.
transactions.
It's fine. Terminology.
No, also because it's like you're possibly doing types of transactions you otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah, of course.
So it makes like a new types of transactions possible that you otherwise wouldn't. So are you batching?
That relates to trust assumptions.
Yes, but my point is like you're not batching like on-chain transactions. The type of transactions that you're doing are like of a different nature.
No, not at all. No.
Well,
Don't
okay,
confuse that with batching. I mean, batching economic transactions, basically.
Yes. Okay. Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I like that way of putting
That's
it.
fine. Invent another word. I don't care about the words. I care about the concepts.
Yeah. For me, it's the concept of Lightning is inter-UTXO liquidity.
Yes, it's a liquidity network. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So to do some fancy tricks by shifting balances among UTXOs, that's the thing. So I'm not
with different trust assumptions than you would have on chain or on, I don't know, like, a database.
Yes, but ideally only different trust assumption in not in terms of any, let's say, theoretical means, but only like practical. I need to run the hardware means, right? You don't need to.
How do you mean that?
You don't need to run like an active node and take a look at what the state of your contract and your interaction is with the other person. If you're just cold storage, hodling, right? You don't need to run a node, but you need to be actively. You need to actively leverage the guarantees that Bitcoin gives you. And the risks that are introduced is the fact that you lose touch of leveraging the guarantees that Bitcoin gives you.
Yeah, of course. That's a hard, like that's a very hard problem philosophically. Basically, I would argue. Because to defining what Bitcoin is, you need to use Bitcoin.
Do you mean do you need BTC in order to?
I mean,
well, maybe
you need to be an economic actor to have a say in what Bitcoin is, basically, or so that your opinion has some teeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's correct.
And so just hodling without any economic activity is equivalent to losing a private key.
I don't know. Under the assumption I find it again at some point, or I possibly find it again at some point.
Well, my point is there is no such thing as basically just hodling. You intend to spend in the future again as well, right?
Oh, like that. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you need to be. You need to. you need to. The point I'm trying to make is that no one can tell you what Bitcoin is. You have to define this for yourself, and you also kind of have to constantly define it for yourself in some sense, right? Because it's also evolving in some sense. I mean, that's why the holy grail is backward compatibility, because we might have a guy in the coma who pops back up in 50 years from now and wants to spend his coins.
I've read that they turn into slush. Did you read that article?
What, people in comas?
No, people the cryogenic people.
So
the first cryogenically frozen people, they're all slush now.
All right, that's not what I meant, but I believe it. I assume all the singularity people are slush. Yeah. You can have a brain smoothie if you find one of them.
So the odds that we're gonna have to contend with Hal's stack is probably not.
Oh
that
yeah,
big.
that's right. He is indeed frozen. But yeah,
right.
no. That's not what I meant. The problem is that because we have no central authority, no one can tell you what Bitcoin is. So you have to participate in defining what Bitcoin is. But for
also, it's
for your
forward
opinion to
compatibility.
have any.
Right.
Yeah,
By the way.
true. That's also. Depending on your viewpoint. Yeah, of course. If you decide to hodl for the next 20
okay,
years, it's
if
forward
you-
compatibility.
If
Yeah.
you let's take in the Nintendos back again. So
Yeah.
like the Game Boy Advance has backwards compatibility with the regular Game Boy.
Yeah.
But the
future
regular Game
Bitcoin
Boy-
versions, future
Right.
Bitcoin versions have
Right.
backward compatibility. Yeah.
Yes.
Need to have backward
But
compatibility.
what you strive for is that you have forward compatibility, such as that in
Of the
this
whole
case,
system.
an old Game Boy can play Game Boy Advance games. At least in such a way that they're playable. You're probably not gonna get all the features.
No, that's not it. That's not the right metaphor. The right metaphor is if you pick if you put a new cartridge into your old Game Boy, the old Game Boy will not explode. But it is, right?
Right, it has
Because
to, it
you
has
you,
to function.
you will not. No, it just has to run the old shit. It will not be able to run a new game.
Right, that's what I say.
Not-
So it's just like you don't get all the
Alright.
you don't get all the new features, but it has to at least play still.
Well, a non-SegWit node cannot make sense of a SegWit transaction.
Right.
Yeah, but it won't explode.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. We agree again. It's the agreement podcast.
But where were we at?
I don't know. You were talking about not enough UTXOs for everyone.
Oh, right. So and then we drifted into Lightning, and that's a liquidity network.
So the thing is,
and
and I think that's Alan's basic point, is that
the
history of
financialization,
money
yeah.
and banking is, dealing with these kind of issues. And I mean, Lynn Alden talked about this a lot as well recently with basically the problem the gold had is that you can't really move it around. Like gold it sucks to transport gold.
right.
And so her whole point is due to telecommunication networks being invented, like the telegraph and everything else, money suddenly had to move faster, and gold is not able to move fast, and that's where all the abstractions came in, and we had we started to deal with paper abstractions of gold and so on, and then digital abstractions and so on. And the thing with Bitcoin is that you will have to build the same abstractions or very similar abstractions, but you can build them in a way so that they have very different trust assumptions, like in Lightning, for example, because in Lightning Bitcoin is actually the judge, jury, and executioner in terms of one party trying to cheat.
Okay, but here's the issue. So it doesn't create any new different trust assumptions in regards to anything that's custodial. So there's always something that fascinated me, is the phrase of regulating Bitcoin, or because in these
How
Bitcoin's
do you
15
mean
years.
the trust assumption with custodial? Because you can move, you can switch from custodial to non-custodial, or from custodial to another custodian very easily and quickly.
Well, assuming you can get your money at the custodian. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I was setting it up. This like Bitcoin is now 15 years old. Happy birthday, Bitcoin! Yesterday, I think. So in those years, it's like, well, people talked about regulating Bitcoin, and I was also always fascinated by this concept. It's like, well, what do you actually mean by regulating Bitcoin? Because there is a reason we have like a whole bunch of financial regulation, because there is a lot of trust that we need to have in all these financial institutions and banks and stuff, and they have like regulators and oversight and parameters and whatever they need to meet, and in order to mitigate this issue that we have to trust these systems, or they can just run off with our money basically, and or dilute it in whatever other way, and ironically that's via more higher level complicated things still occurring. So we do need Bitcoin, but it's like if you look everything in relation to Bitcoin itself, and if you do it via the contracts on chain, all that stuff, you are able to do things where the whole point is that you don't actually need regulation. And then
I agree. I mean, Bitcoin was self-regulated from the
yes,
start.
yes. So that's
because of the
so
difficulty adjustment.
yes, so that always fascinated me. But the thing is like the moment you get into like custodial situations, that's like begging for regulation. In the sense is that we're now dealing with the exact same shit that we dealt with the old system. So I'm not actually you can build, of course you can always build those types of things on Bitcoin. You can also the most interesting thing is like with Lightning is all those custodians, they can actually be connected to Bitcoin in this real way via Lightning, that the moment even if you are having a custodial relationship with one particular custodian, your interaction with everybody else can still be via meaningful Bitcoin, real Bitcoin, via Lightning.
That's what Fediment does.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Which is again a different trust assumption.
For the counterparty, yeah. Or not necessarily. It doesn't dictate the trust assumption for the counterparty.
It's in between running your own Lightning node or using wallet of Satoshi.
I'm not sure if it is. It just depends on what your it just depends on what your
depends
relationship
on what your
is.
federation is. Yeah.
Yes, well, it just depends on what your trust assumption is with your custodian and the trust assumption with the other on the other side.
The promise is that the federated custodian with a digital panic bank run button is better than trusting one single custodian, basically.
Yeah.
Single party custodian.
Yes.
That's the assumption.
Yes.
Because
so you can have this whole
if
free
done
banking
properly,
vision.
if done properly, if something smells fishy with your federation, you can actually smash the button and you will either move to a different federation or spin up your own, and you'll be out. You'll actually run the bank, run the federation in
yes. Okay, but
seconds.
Okay. All right. So that's true. But then the question becomes: does it still work? If not, next to that, we're also hanging those people, right? And my suspicion is that it is required to also hang the rug pullers on an oak tree in order to make like any free banking scenario work. By which I mean it's like you have to, there has to be a risk for.
So reputational damage is not enough.
No, because like reputation is fucking fugazi, right? It's too cheap. Especially on the internet, like what? I mean, the whole point is that that we're like doing a digital economy. I get like I have like the local thingy.
Is there no reputation in a digital economy?
Yes, there is, but it is also like cheap to create a new identity. Now, it's not necessarily cheap to rebuild the reputation on the new identity.
There we go.
That doesn't mean like. Then the point is still, if the moment that the capital exceeds the value of my reputation, then it's just up to me. Then just the choice becomes, when do I cash in, right? Okay, I'm close to retirement. I don't want to do this thing anymore. I have like a very valuable reputation, so it's not time to cash in on my reputation because I'm gonna die in 20 years, and I'm just like there's so much money.
People do that all the time. People do that also with their Hollywood superstars, and then they sell out or whatever.
Yes.
So
I think we also need to hang, right? in metaphorically in Minecraft with due process, but.
I mean, that's my main worry about the Fediment model is basically that you will have these kind of copycats that emulate other federations that are actually trustworthy for a while, and then they rug pull.
Yeah.
And they rug pull like half a continent or something.
Right. Right. By which I mean, and with the hang, I mean like that's the regulation, right? With the hanging. That's like the regulators coming in. That's like the imperial ships coming to the pirate shores and introducing order. So with that in mind, I'm a bit wary of going in this direction. Whereas, have you seen? And so
what's that also alternative? But what's the alternative?
So. To
for you, right? Like if I understand your viewpoint correctly, the alternative is there is no alternative, and we will only have a couple feudal lords that hold actual Bitcoin, and the rest are fucked.
Yeah, basically. Well,
Do you
not
have a
necessarily.
Lightning wallet?
But not necessarily. So, no, I don't run Lightning node. I'm like all the
No,
plebs
that's
don't
not what
actually
I
know
asked.
that they're.
That's not what I asked. Do you have a Lightning wallet?
Oh yeah, I have multiple. Yeah,
And you have like, what, 20, 50, $100 in it?
something like that. Yeah.
There you go.
And I've paid like a friend $5 for the. He's running the node. And I paid him $5 too.
So
I don't have to.
So my point with asking that question is that I think people will kind of figure it out, and Fedimints will find their place, and custodial Lightning will find its place too, and already kind of has found a place. I mean, most people on Nostr that receive SAPs use custodial wallets because everything else is kind of a pain in the ass.
Yes, but so my point here is
But
that
you
cannot.
don't
But we're
hold
still.
generational wealth in there.
But we okay, but so because there was a follow up. Did you listen to Michael Saylor on Stefan Levera?
No.
It was like 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. Where to like basically to boil it down, he talked about granite for some fucking reason, like New York or like Manhattan granite the entire fucking episode. He like what time is for you the New York New York granite is for Michael Saylor, but I think he basically got to the point where it's like, don't change Bitcoin. It's probably, I think he said like Bitcoin is good enough. Don't change Bitcoin. You're only gonna fuck it up. And that narrative or that way of thinking. I do take kind of issue with that, because I do think that we are able to scale what we're able to do with Bitcoin so much. There's so much potential there, and to the point where it's like, okay, do we have a couple of feudal lords who are actually doing on-chain Bitcoin stuff, or do we have like a very large group of feudal lords, or maybe the group is large enough that they're not just feudal lords anymore? And like, I don't know, but I think there's to the extent that there is so much potential there, what we could possibly do with Bitcoin that is not practical now. To say that we shouldn't basically soft fork, or to assume that Bitcoin's done right now or good enough. Yeah, I take issue with that. So what's your view? Is Bitcoin good enough? Is Bitcoin good enough? And it's two questions, I think so. But is Bitcoin good enough? Is it minimal viable? One. And two, would you optimize it?
I would answer both in the affirmative. I would say yes to both.
I'm not sure about the first one. Maybe it's minimal viable.
To me, it's a miracle that Bitcoin exists already. Like,
I agree, and it's like insane where we are, right? I have to pinch myself every time. It's like, and there are like these news events. I still think like the Bukele thing. It's just a stupid fringe little country, whatever. But it's like, well, it's at least it happened, right?
Oh, it caught me completely by surprise, because if you would have asked me before that became public, I would have told you like that doesn't happen for another like at least 5-6 years. So we are ahead in terms of timeline.
And in a sense, it hasn't. I still agree with that assessment that it will happen like in 5 years, or at that stage. So it's like now a couple of years.
But we have a.
Well, it happened, but we have a
nation state. We have a nation state stacking. So that's quite something. It's not nothing.
Yes, but it's also it's like also in the margin of error, right? Could be an outlier. We might not even take it into account into the grand scheme of things. So let's say it takes 20 years for the other countries to start adopting, and then they actually start adopting it like one after another, and you actually have nation state adoption in 20 years. Does the Bukele thing still count? No, then it's like an outlier outside of your box plot, right?
Yeah, I see. So to me, Bitcoin is kind of, again, a miracle that it's here and that it exists, and it's there for those who need it. And I think that will continue to be true for a long time, kind of. And then it will kind of switch to being the default, just like the internet is the default for communication now, and everything runs over the internet, including fucking telephone calls and fucking TV and I don't know what. And so I think it will just be the default money at one point in time, but towards that point, like you guys talked in the past about hyper-Bitcoinization, and it's very, very hard to define the point of hyper-Bitcoinization. It's very hard. Like, I thought about this question a lot, and similarly, like my go-to example is always, would you agree that we are now past hyper-smartphoneization?
Yeah.
All right. When was the point of hyper-smartphoneization?
I guess the first...
Was it the announcement of the iPhone? I highly doubt it.
Yeah, sure. No.
There we go. Was it Android?
No. I think...
Yeah. You see what I'm trying to say? It's really hard in hindsight to...
Yes, but I also don't think there's a need to define. It's like porn, right? It's
yeah,
like,
you know it when you see it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I bring all this up is because there are people that basically are already hyper-Bitcoinized in some sense.
Okay. Who can you give an example of somebody that is not LARPing?
Earning Bitcoin, only spending Bitcoin. Saving Bitcoin, obviously, but there is a bunch of people.
Yeah, okay, but can you give an example that is not LARPing? Right, that is not like...
Should I name names?
No,
I know those people. I'm not gonna name them.
Right, but to what extent does it actually... is there a reason for them to use Bitcoin instead of something else?
Because they are living in areas where they can spend it on anything. And if I have the choice, I always spend Bitcoin because it's the most convenient for me, mostly.
Yeah.
Even if it's out of a custodial Lightning wallet, to loop back to the previous topic. But, I'm getting there. Like, I pay my rent in Bitcoin, for example. It's the most convenient option.
Of course, it's like it's of course on the margins you get it first, right? I guess that's the point.
But you had people, and you were one of them, that were like we called them internet people, in like '99, that were on the internet before everyone else and used the internet for everything and did online shopping where no one knew what online shopping was, basically,
right?
And looked up information on the internet and so on. So they were already hyper-internetized people. Like, you lived on the internet, I can tell by just listening to you.
It's lies. It's all lies. I have a 24/7 schedule on touching grass, and it's only for these rare occasions that I go inside to record a podcast.
All right.
I philosophize on Bitcoin on the grass. That's what I do.
By touching grass, you mean moving SCVs over grassy patches?
Yes.
Yeah, I see.
Well, and cutting up trees. That's something I bought all the equipment.
Yeah.
And next week.
I know you have a forest and you
yes.
work, chop wood and stuff.
Work.
That's there you go. But to answer your question, I think you need to improve Bitcoin in some way. You need to at least maintain Bitcoin. You will always have to do that because software development is basically gardening, and so you need to maintain the forest, and you need to cut down some trees, and you need to deal with like updates and fucking I don't know CPU architecture and whatnot. Like someone has to do this stuff. Otherwise, we will have to use very ancient machines to run Bitcoin in the future.
Okay, so to what extent is there a problem there to be solved? I also discussed this with unfiatjaf. It's like basically I think we stumbled into a compute paradigm where compute, because it's ultimately fundamentally formal logic, it has some potential in there to be far more streamlined than it actually is. I get that in the practical reality, because you're always going to be building abstractions on abstractions, that there's going to be some level of duct tape and tie wraps.
I remember this discussion. Yeah. What I mean, would you agree that you gave me shit before for Bitcoin is an organism?
Yes.
but that's how technology works. That's how everything works. It evolves. And you can't go back to the drawing board and do it better from scratch. That's not how it works. And what makes you think that it would even be better in the first place?
I'm not sure to what extent that's actually true. That you can go back to the drawing board. So the thing is where that absolutely doesn't work if you're trying to, I think, do something novel. I think a good example is like cities, right? There are like so many urban planning. There's so many urban planning things, from small scale to like entire cities, that have been pre-planned and absolutely suck, and don't work. But looking backwards, like looking back and saying, well, okay, this is what we did over time, and we got to this point. Can we get to this point taking another route? Yeah, sure. I can see that we were able to do that. Why not? Why can't you? Why couldn't we? Let's say Bitcoin ossifies, right? At some stage where it's like, okay, there's like in 1,000 years, there's not even been a proposal anymore. So we're 1,000 years in the future, and then, so it's not going to change anymore. It's like, well, maybe we can just recreate the thing, knowing that this is the thing that we're actually using. Only get out all the fucking bullshit, such that we don't have all the legacy cost when it's the year 1001 after Bitcoin, because we have this continuous overhead of keeping up with all the fucking bullshit that might get more expensive over
bullshit? Time. The actual fucking bullshit you would have to deal with is to assign UTXO ownership to the new system.
Why? Okay, so okay, the point is that you get a fork and then you get a battle between the forks.
The point is that
right?
You're trying to solve the thing that Bitcoin actually solves for you, and you try to start from scratch. Which is the same thing that with cities. You know, if you go back to the drawing board and try to create a better city than an organic city that grew over thousands of years, you lose all the implicit wisdom and history of these thousands of years that you're not even aware of. You're not even aware of the problems that the city solves.
I guess one way of doing it is like burning your Bitcoin on one chain. That could be one way, right? To go to another. That's like a slow migration.
So you're only stuck with the problem of convincing everyone on Earth that uses the thing to burn it at the same time, and switch over.
Or maybe like not at the same time.
IPv4 to IPv6 switch.
Yes.
Which we also discussed.
Yes. So, okay, maybe we have to maybe I have to become God Emperor first, and then
exactly.
Do the
thing. That's always the problem. And also, assuming that a God Emperor would actually have perfect knowledge and would know what to do.
But I get, so the thing here is like, it's a very practical theory that you're introducing here. But I do wonder to what extent such a proposal could be practical. I get all the reasons why it's not. But the thing is like, there are good reasons to do it. And there's also Bitcoin itself lends the whole thing that it ossifies and it's not supposed to change helps in this regard, right? Because we're not introducing anything new per se. It should be like exactly as the old thing. But
again, Bitcoin is a living organism. You can't really replace a living organism easily.
No, it's just a highly distributed machine that enforces legacy due to update friction. It's not a fucking living organism. The reason that I kind of hate those analogs is because it's like a sort of mystification that goes along with it. That's my number one enemy in Bitcoin. It's like the whole mystification of things. It's like I want to destroy all mystification, so I rather call it a machine, because that's what it is.
So you started a podcast with a dude that no one knows anything about.
The other dude started a podcast with a dude that nobody knows anything about.
All right.
Yeah.
Would you agree why do we call it a living language? Would you agree that the living language is actually a living thing?
That the language is a living thing?
Yeah. My question is actually different. Why do we call it a living language?
Because it's spoken.
Because it's not dead?
Yes.
All right.
Because it's not owned to the dead, right? The dead own a lot of languages.
But you're basically you don't have a problem with mystification. I think you have a problem with abstraction, in some sense. Would you agree that a company can be viewed as a living system, or a city? Since we were at the topic of cities before.
So. Sorry, my head's going a bit faster than I can speak on the podcast. But to give you the conclusion is that you're a very good fascist, in the sense that you you identify that clusters of humans have that the human condition has these emergent tangible, in a sense, clusters that are their own type of organism or thing, that have that subsequent structures are then like built around it. So like cities or villages or Bitcoin.
So what you're saying is there is a reason why plant cities have no soul.
that plants have no soul. That plants say that we don't have a soul.
No. Planned cities, like city planners that plan.
Oh,
cities
yes.
Have no soul. That's what you're saying, basically.
Are they soulless? Yes. I guess they lack the emergent. They, by definition, they have to seek for the spark that was otherwise be at the basis of the emergence of the city.
All right. So my argument is a redesigned Bitcoin would have no soul.
Oh, I agree. It would be very soulless, and that's like the property of it. It's like very convenient.
Exactly. That's actually what we care about. We care about the soul of Bitcoin, which is the 21 million.
So I'm only arguing for a formal specification for Bitcoin. That is not C code or C++ code or whatever. That's tied to like.
What do you want to have is a formal specification of a living system?
Because it's not a fucking. So the code is not like the living system.
No, that's what you think. That's what you think. But I'm telling you, it's not. Bitcoin is not what you think it is. That's why it will never have a formal specification. It can't have it.
Of course, it can have. It could have had. It could have had it. Like, okay, why would Bitcoin not be Bitcoin if it had, like, Satoshi started out with a formal specification?
Because the implementation can always deviate from the specification. And then you try to solve the problem, and Bitcoin actually solves the implementation of Bitcoin solves. And that's also what unfiatjaf argued, if I remember correctly, but that just popped into my head now. But that was his point.
No, so the point is that you're able to run tests to see if your implementation aligns with the specification, right? The also thing is like you I guess you'd say you'd create a mother chip. You could create a mother chip, yeah. Like the meter that there. I don't think we still use that, but there's like a meter and a kilogram somewhere in France. And you have
So
like
you
the
would
mother chip of
like
Bitcoin.
to have something that where theory trumps reality. And what I'm trying to tell you is that reality will always trump theory. And what Bitcoin implements is reality, its own reality. And that's why you cannot have a specification of it. Because if there is a deviation between the two, which you will always have because a theory is always an abstraction of reality, then you are fucked. You're at square zero. You have to figure out what is actually... you need to arrive on consensus of what is the valid one. Is the specification correct, or is the actual implementation that deviates from it now correct?
Okay, so when is our fork coming? When is the fork apocalypse coming?
What do you mean?
Well, that's what you're saying. Is like what we're currently doing is impossible, right?
No, that's
having
not what I'm
having consensus among all these nodes that are running software.
No, it's
that's
not what I'm
fucking
saying at all.
impossible.
No, you didn't hear me at all. You didn't hear what I said at all. If you have a specification of something that's different than the actual implementation of the thing, it will always be a different entity in the universe. They are not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Right, but the point is to create formal specification.
But that doesn't matter. What matters is what's actually real in the world.
Yes, so the point is that people run the formal specified
the point is that Bitcoin is actually a real thing in the world that exists.
Yes, with shitty code.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Sure it doesn't matter. I'll give that in terms of like the minimal. So you said yes if like Bitcoin is minimal viable.
No,
maybe
Bitcoin is a real thing. Here's the thing. Usually, Bitcoin is so weird because usually, if we digitize something, if we make something digital, it becomes less real. Would you agree with that?
If we turn something that is analog into digital, you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Usually,
and that's usually what we do if we digitize something.
Yes, you lose information. Yeah.
It's not only that; it's just it's less real because you can manipulate it more easily, you can destroy it more easily. Those kind of things. It's less real. Whatever we call real, it's less that. Bitcoin is the opposite. Bitcoin is, but there's a reason why Satoshi also called it not digital money but electronic money, because it actually, there is a difference between the two. But Bitcoin is a digital thing in the end, birthed by electrons.
But yeah, I agree. So I call it a machine,
that
right?
That is more real than basically anything else we have in the digital realm. It's more real than most things.
I
could be a GPT instance talking to you right now, but the next Bitcoin block, you can be sure that one's real. I could be a simulation. You don't know.
In that sense. Well, at different
so Bitcoin
rates.
is way more real than me.
At different
Bitcoin
rates, yes.
Bitcoin is way more real than me, my digital representation that you are hearing now, than me, and Bitcoin is way more real than this whole digitized conversation. Which is weird, right? But it's also true.
It's harder to forge, I give you that, yes.
Yeah. Which is kind of what we use for reality. How confused can you be about it, right?
Right, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And
so the reason why
okay,
I bring all this up is because if you have a specification and an implementation, the implementation is the thing that's real, not the specification.
The thing is that
especially
the whole point about the formal the formal specification is that it's like mathematically watertight, right?
No.
That's the whole idea of the...
No. You're still missing the point completely. Who defines it? That's the problem that Bitcoin solves, the who defines it problem.
Does it? Because I'm still fucking downloading software just off some fucking website.
No, you're defining it by running it.
Yes.
All the economic participants are defining what Bitcoin is by running Bitcoin. You cannot do this. You cannot achieve consensus over a specification.
No,
But
that's
you
what
have
we
to
are.
do.
No, that's what we're doing. We are achieving consensus over like we're achieving consensus over an implementation, right?
Exactly, but
Yes.
not over a specification.
Yes, but the it's like the specification is implied. We're not blindly
No,
just
not
running a
really.
machine. We have expectations of how the machine ought to function.
No. The soul of Bitcoin is implied. No, you're laughing, but I'm actually serious. What people care about is basically the soul of Bitcoin, which is 21 million. And so attacks on the soul are the problem.
No, more. There's more. There's more than the 21 million, right? It's the consensus rules in general.
Of course, but
Yes.
I'm taking shortcuts to make a point.
Yes, but here's my point: is that it's not. I get on theory you're right, but now let's make it practical in the sense that can you actually make a mathematical, watertight version of Bitcoin?
It doesn't
It's
matter
not.
because
It's
you
not
need
going to
other
be.
people to agree with you.
Okay, hold on for a second. Right? Can you make that? Well, yes, you can. It's not going to be compatible with Bitcoin as it is right now, right? Because Bitcoin has the bugs. Maybe you. I guess the whole point of it also to fix some of these bugs. So, can you do that? Yes. Can I find then subsequently, let's say 100 people that are that can actually read it and reconstruct it and verify that this is actually the thing that it's ought to do? Probably, yeah. That's it's not going to be impossible to do that. Can I make like an environment where it's subsequently tested that the thing it's supposed to be actually follows the formal specifications, and have that in a practical sense that's software that people can download and run? Well, the answer has to be yes, because we're doing it with Bitcoin Core itself right now. And then subsequently, you have a definition of Bitcoin that is not there's no ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
There's no ambiguity as to what Bitcoin is, whereas now with like the software implementation that we have, there technically is
No.
ambiguity as to what Bitcoin
There
is.
is no, the ambiguity does not come from all of this. That's good. It's completely a different question. It's completely besides the point.
Why? Why is it besides the point?
So first of all, I was gonna indulge you and basically say yes to everything just for the fun of it, and present you with the thought experiment of a solar storm, bit flipping, everything in this system at the same time, and we end up with 21 million, and let's just for the sake of argument, we end up with 42 billion Bitcoin because some old
Yes.
thing changed, whatever. All right, so with that event, we have a strong divergence from the specification, right? Implementation and specification diverge for some reason. Might be a solar storm, might be whatever, might be a.
I have a hard time going along with this because the whole point is that when somebody reboots a new system, then they're going to find out that something's wrong. They're not going to be on that chain. Right? So at every moment in time after that, people are not going to be on that chain. Whatever event occurred that...
I was trying to pick an easy example. But I'll come back to that. The other thing that you said that has me really scratching my head is that you have a problem with the question of what Bitcoin is currently being undefined.
No, it is defined. Sure, it is defined.
No, it's not.
Well, yeah, in terms of like the C code, it is defined.
No, people have very different views on Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is, and also run different software. There is an overlap.
Okay, so when is our hard fork? Where is our fork apocalypse going to come? Because apparently what
already
we're
had
doing
forks.
is we can't do, right?
No, we already had these forks. I mean, Bcash was the fork, BSOE was the fork, and so on.
Yes, and we also had
That
bugs.
That came from a philosophical disagreement on what Bitcoin is.
Yes. Yes, that's also a layer.
And my whole point, and that's also something I mentioned multiple times before, is no one can tell you what Bitcoin is, and that's by design. You have to define it for yourself. By running this, like your version of Bitcoin, you have to define for yourself. There are still people that run non-sequit nodes and so on, for example. It will always be like this. It has to be like this. Otherwise, you introduce authority again.
But it doesn't change the actual content of the blockchain. Well, with SegWit you could argue, but it doesn't change the actual contents of the blockchain. So it's you're not actually.
Of course it does. Why do we have ordinals now? Of course it does.
What do
you have.
I still don't get it. So the thing that's changing there is like you can decide, because I disagree, is like on that level. I agree that it's ultimately human beings deciding to run a system.
Because you must not have an authority. Everyone has to decide for themselves.
But the thing with
that's by design, and that specification will completely destroy that. If you mean specification, not by whatever implementation details. If you mean by specification actually what Bitcoin is.
So there I would disagree. Is like if we'd had a good I don't see a reason why it's a problem if we had like a good specification at the start. Which is not which is a non-trivial thing, right? It's like, well, would have it helped? Probably not, because it's like, could you have built the perfect Bitcoin at the start of Bitcoin? No, you probably like can't. There's no way.
There is no perfect in the first place. There's only trade-offs. No. So here, no. So it's a. I'll have to go to sleep soon, but go ahead.
No. But
because that feels like another 2 hours.
No. So that's this is like Platonic, right? So I'm not making a Platonic argument. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
so
you are.
Yes. So it's there's like you have like the chair, let's say the Platonic chair.
Yeah.
You can make the Platonic chair. I'm arguing is like you make like a better version of that like the chair, but I'm not changing the chair. Whereas the imperfect would be is like I'm not altering I'm not giving it 3 legs instead of 4 or whatever. I'm not altering its properties in making it less or more perfect. Or it's like it's not about changing the thing. I'm not trying to change Bitcoin. I'm not trying to change the consensus rules. I'm actually trying to keep Bitcoin as the same as it is as much as possible. It's just that if it is formally verified, it actually solves a problem where it is. The problem is the ambiguity. But we already discussed this. What I want to mention is the problem that I have with like the notion of, well, you decide for yourself what Bitcoin is. Yes, there is this social layer where people decide what they have to run Bitcoin. The thing is, if we're like hyper Bitcoinized, it's like a gridlock. You can't fucking decide what node you're running. Even now, you have no fucking. You have no business in deciding what node you're running. No.
Oh, of course you can. You're just alone.
Right. So you have no business.
No. But we went through all this. I mean, that's what the Bcashers did. It is a real possibility, and it's also a possibility that has to be there. You need to have the possibility for real exit as well if you disagree with the majority.
But it's not. But it's like. Is it something? I'm not sure it actually is. And in the short term, yeah, sure. That's probably my view of the thing.
No. Who decides who's right or wrong?
The majority.
You as the philosopher king. That's what you would want to have, the philosopher king.
No, the majority. The majority of hash rate. That's the point. The majority of hash rate decides what's.
No.
So that
Also no. It's way more complicated than that. It's not true. The majority of hash rate it is simply not true, because the Bcashers had the majority of hash rate. We went through all this in the past. So this is already decided, kind of. Like we went through this whole exercise already. That's why Bitcoin is so interesting and resilient. It's not the majority hash rate that decides. And because there is no good answer to the millions of questions of should we do this or that, or who is right or who is wrong, you need to have this exit possibility always. Otherwise, you fall back to an authoritarian dictated system.
But why are we
either high priests or?
Something I disagree. It's like, why are we arguing this in the context of there being a formal specification or not? Right.
I think you are confused about what do you mean by the formal specification.
Because
if you just mean for the sake of software bugs and using a different programming language or whatever, then that's kind of meaningless. That's a meaningless point to make.
No, so it's because there's a difference between
because the actual meaningful question is who decides what Bitcoin is and who will decide it in the future. And the answer cannot be the people who write the specification, because it cannot be the people who write the specification in terms of coming to an agreement, because then you have a political system around the specification, like we have with laws and so on. Like, who decides and writes the laws? It's the people, right? In theory.
The point is that you...
Do you get my point? Do you get the point before you continue? Do you get the point? We have this already. It's the legacy fiat system, basically, where you have laws and lawmakers and you can run for office and so on and so forth, and you can voice your influence and so on.
Yes, but to what extent don't we have this in Bitcoin right currently? So we do. We do have this in Bitcoin.
We do?
Right. Yes,
How?
we are. We are discussing.
Are you running for Bitcoin office?
No, we're discussing soft forks. There are these. People go to bitcoin.org or whatever the URL is to download their node implementation.
Yeah, but in the end you have to literally vote with your wallet.
Yes, right.
Which is different. And you have an emergent consensus out of an organic system, which is also different than writing a specification.
Yes, but here's the thing: is that you. I'm not changing. I'm not trying to change. So you talked about the spirit of Bitcoin. So I'm not changing the consensus rules. I'm not changing any of the rules or the functioning of the system. Only there in the edge cases where Bitcoin is currently doing weird stuff that we're not actually, that goes against the spirit of Bitcoin. It's just that
what would that be? Enlighten me with an example.
There are these silly bugs inside Bitcoin where it has like weird behavior that you have to account for. Where the whole thing is where the whole thing is that if you're trying to run it on a different ISA with a different programming language in a different paradigm of compute, if you want to translate current Bitcoin C++ code Bitcoin to a new paradigm of compute, you would have to could you do it? Could you make such a translation, or would you have to create an emulator, which is overhead, right, in order to within the emulator run Bitcoin? Or do you have the lowest level of abstraction, which is bare math, right, and formal logic, and which you technically even could make, you could build it with gates, right, with logic gates. You could print a chip doing the exact same thing. That is not, there is no Jesus Christ, why the word again? Ambiguous. So there's no ambiguity for it in whatever translation to a new compute paradigm there is. So I can build a Bitcoin machine with gears. I can build it with hydraulic pressure thingies or whatever light tube chips that I'm gonna make in the future. I'm always able to recreate a true implementation in the new compute paradigm in order to stay in consensus with the rest of the network. That's what I'm arguing for.
Well, eat your heart out. I don't think that's an issue at all. And that's nothing I care about, even remotely, because that's not an actual problem, basically.
Is it? I don't know. On what time scale? Mr. Bitcoin's time? On what time scale? I don't know. Do you want to have this thing running for 100 years? What would be a nice life cycle for Bitcoin? The minimal viable life cycle, or what? How old? Jesus Christ! What question do I want to ask? How old has Bitcoin have to become?
Will Bitcoin still be around in 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years?
Yes.
Is what you're trying to ask.
Yes, in relation to it being a success or not.
All right. If it goes away, the reason why it goes away is not because you have to write bugwords compatible code in whatever programming language or computer paradigm that you might come up with, and so on. It's I think that it's really a non-issue what you've been describing. I misunderstood you for the longest time, I think, because the important thing is actually answering the question of what Bitcoin is, which is an emergent thing. And you cannot put this into a specification. That is my whole point.
Okay, so because of...
you
are
trying to solve this problem, you would destroy everything that
you think
that makes Bitcoin. Yes, 100%. It's like I don't want to change the city. I don't want to change this living, breathing 5,000-year-old city that still exists. I just want to freeze it in time by pouring epoxy over it. I don't want to, like that's your proposed solution is so much worse than any like bugs that are currently in Bitcoin and have to be accounted for.
But isn't it
so much worse?
Isn't the idea that the rules are set in stone? That's like a Satoshi quote, right?
Yeah, it is. But it's not only the idea. That's also but the reason why the rules are set in stone is not because of a specification or lack thereof. It's like a specification wouldn't help you with that.
No, the reason that it's very yes, I agree.
It's a social coordination.
Yes,
problem.
yes.
So
yes.
we
agree.
So and that's the thing that I care about, that your specification doesn't change anything of that.
Correct.
And that's why the specification is completely irrelevant, because
Incorrect.
whatever Bitcoin is, whatever Bitcoin is irrelevant by my viewpoint, because I only care about Bitcoin living and existing, and I care philosophically about what Bitcoin was and is and will be, and a specification doesn't play any role in that.
Okay,
and
but
can't play any role in that.
Okay, so your defense would be
language is a great example. Why don't we have a formal specification for our languages, living languages? Because you would destroy the language.
But we sidemark, we do have at least the Dutch is very formally specified to a very large extent.
Yeah,
has been for a very long time as well.
You have high priests that add new words to the dictionary, but that's not how the language actually works.
Yes, but the point I wanted to make.
So the specification is a lagging indicator of the actual living language.
Well, yeah, sure, but the whole thing with Bitcoin is that it's not
useless.
really gonna.
So it's useless for the real thing.
But the mutation rate of language is far higher than that of Bitcoin.
It's arbitrary rules defined by high priests that will tell you in hindsight what is okay and what is not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In relation to...
I made my point.
Yes, in relation to something that isn't going to change anymore. That was one of the points I made, right?
But that's an assumption that you cannot make, because you don't know the future. Bitcoin might always change.
Maybe. That's very unlikely, though. I mean, and there's nothing stopping it from changing. So, but because the point is that you are condemning, let's put it that way. You are condemning the future generations for however long Bitcoin is going to run to deal with the stupid overhead, because otherwise Bitcoin wouldn't have a soul.
No. But that's exactly my point. Just my point is that the overhead is not stupid.
No, of course it's stupid. I understand how it got there, and it's completely reasonable that it got there. But even though it's reasonable that it got there, the thing that is there is still stupid.
No, I would disagree.
So you have like a path, It's like a very nice path. It's just there's
No.
one stupid rock, and you bump your toe
No.
into the stupid
If-
rock
if-
every single fucking time.
No. Let me pick another example. If a tradition is still around, even though you think it's stupid after 1,000 years or so, if it's still around, there's a reason why it's still around, and maybe you just don't know the reason well enough. But it's not because it's just purely stupid.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's entirely possible. The problem here is that
Yeah.
that doesn't necessitate that is the case. It could also be something that is just was not significant enough, right, for it to influence other things to just stick around. That's
And
also
so
possible.
if it's not significant, you would. Okay, so you don't know the difference. You don't know, and you cannot know the difference between a significant stupid tradition and an insignificant stupid tradition. And my point is,
Well, Gigi, I can because, we're very fucking close to the creation of this fucking thing. It's only 15 years ago, and we kind of know what the point of it is. And, you can.
no. You're still not getting me. By creating a specification, you're destroying everything that makes it great. Doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so all the things you criticize come out of the fact that it doesn't have and cannot have and must not have basically a specification. A specification would be useless. It would be a lagging indicator of the real thing, just like with languages.
Yes, but it doesn't matter if it's lagging if it's not going to change. That's one. And two, it's not. Oh, we're going in circles.
Yeah.
Because
I agree that we are going in circles. I disagree with everything else you said.
I mean, it already has a
No,
specification.
but
The
you
specification is
get
in the
my-
form. The specification is the fucking core software right now, right?
And the specification of English is us talking to each other.
No,
not
because we don't. Because the thing is that yes, we can have misunderstandings, but we're not gonna instantly fucking fork in every
You're
fucking
aware that there are other
nuanced.
clients than core, right?
Yes, and so when is the and that's very interesting. Like, when are they going to disagree? And what are those other clients of core based on?
All right. When they are going to disagree, who decides who's right? That's kind of my point also with the specification, because it cannot be the specification that resolves it, right? Would you agree with me with that, at least? Like in the real world, how to resolve a divergence?
Actually,
Okay.
it is. Actually, it is the. Even though there's no written specification, there is a written, and there's an understanding of what the rules ought to be, right? So whatever so hopefully
Yeah,
in
that's
that
the soul
scenario,
of Bitcoin.
hopefully yes. So hopefully in that scenario, people run. There are like exchanges, and they run like all the three versions, and
I mean,
something.
that's why the inflation bug was fixed, right? Because people actually care about the soul of Bitcoin, which is the 21 million.
Yes. So we had
There
to
we go.
fix. Yes. So we had to fix a bug, which you say is not stupid. The bug was not stupid, right? The bug was great, but great bug, because it was due to the practical realities of this universe and the human condition. That bug got in there. Therefore, that bug's fucking awesome, and we shouldn't try to prevent like all the bug scenarios in the future, even in 1,000 years, going to different compute. Like, we shouldn't just do all of that, because then we're going to kill the soul of
So
Bitcoin.
what you're saying is that what Satoshi should have done is introduce the bug not in the code but in the specification, and he should have just released a very nicely mathematically defined spec'd out thing that others implement, not he himself, and then we would have the implementation bug, the inflation bug in the specification, and then what?
Well, then we obviously had to.
Is it?
Yes. Yes, it is obvious. In terms of an inflation bug, it is obvious. We can actually look at the system and have an understanding of how it ought to follow and what it ought to do. But the thing is like, if you have a good formal specification, if it like checked out, people would have gotten the bug in the first place. The point is that
what about I heavily disagree. What about the transaction malleability bug? Obvious. What about longest chain versus heaviest chain? A mistake that Satoshi made both in the implementation and the white paper. What if this is in the specification? Also obvious, and so on.
Yes, so that's why I argue you do it not you. That's why I already said it's like you don't expect it Satoshi to do it from the start. But why, if the thing is not going to change anymore and the thing hasn't changed, can you not do it in?
Some people viewed it as a bug, some not. What do? You have two specifications.
That's strange to not see it as a bug, right? It's an obviously stupid thing. It's an obviously stupid thing that the result of like doing a hash function or doing a like a mathematical function with the keys like gets to like a different one has the impacts or not.
Zero
like,
conf, real transaction or not? We had this debate quite recently, right?
I'm not sure.
So
I'm not.
two
I'm not sure.
specifications?
Oh yeah. So well, ultimately that doesn't actually matter because that's like a peer-to-peer. So the peer-to-peer policy is interesting to me because I'm not sure.
You understand my actual point, right? What if people disagree? Will we have two different specifications?
Not with the RBF thing. No.
You understand my general point, independent of the 5 examples I just gave. If we disagree on something, do we have two different specifications?
Yes, obviously. You also have two different implementations if you disagree on something.
All right. How do we figure out which one is the actual correct one if we only have specifications? What is the specification? Why is the specification useful in that case? That's my whole point.
My point is that we already have like a specification in it for what would be the specification is what is it, like the spirit of Bitcoin?
That's what you
are. Like the consensus, right? The consensus rules aren't that hard. I don't get it. The consensus rules aren't that hard. What we're doing in Bitcoin isn't actually that hard. Like the administration that Bitcoin is running isn't necessarily particularly hard. Depending on what you're doing in the contracts, that could be very complex.
Agreeing on it is the hard part.
Yes, and it's only done with Bitcoin by increments.
The specification would not help because you would again have to solve the problem of agreeing on the specification.
No, because it's the same thing. Or at least as much as possible the same thing without all the stupid things.
All right, I rest my case. Mostly because I really have to go to sleep. I actually enjoy this.
Hopefully next time unfiatjaf doesn't cut out and leave.
No, it was not cut out and leave. It was rage quit after 5 minutes of time talk. But that's fine.
No, because otherwise he would have interjected. He would have said, "No, I don't want to talk about these things," and then we would have been forced to talk about something else.
I would have actually. I have so many questions for fiatjaf, but it will have to wait for another day. I'll be back on January 3rd, 2025. let's see if Nostr is still alive. What do you think outlives what do you think lives longer, Bitcoin or Nostr?
Ooh, I'd have to go with I have to go with Bitcoin. Yeah.
Why?
Because
it's more complicated, is it not?
The thing with Nostr, there's something trivial to it. It's actually kind of silly.
Don't more complex things die more easily? Don't more complex things die more easily?
More complex things die more easily.
Let me phrase it differently. The simpler something is, the longer it sticks around, no?
Well, the simple things might also be easily replaced. Right?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So you're gonna replace fiatjaf's Nostr after replacing him as a host for this episode.
Yes.
That's the plan.
And then I'm gonna liberate everybody from JSON. So fiatjaf's
binary encoding.
fiatjaf is imposing the JSON tyranny upon the world. The terrible overhead of JSON onto the world.
We'll have a formal specification instead of NIPS.
Yes.
I like it already. Also. You can mathematically prove your shitposts.
Yes, and you can print chips that run Nostr on the hardware level. Excellent. You can do those things.
So you can run Nostr in your Minecraft build whatever.
Yes, you can
Computer.
build. But wouldn't it be awesome to like build like Bitcoin in Minecraft?
Sure, you can do it already. It
Yeah,
just won't run fast.
that's true.
That would be a nice, summer project for some, lonesome nerd with too much time on their hands.
Well, that brings me to the
Build a full node implementation in Minecraft.
that brings me to the guy who broke Tetris. There is a 13-year-old boy who played Tetris to the point that the game breaks, and it was always thought that it was like only computers able to do that because they knew that it was possible. And this kid did it.
Nice.
He kicked, but then I was thinking, it's like, okay, now drop the controller and never play Tetris again.
You peaked.
Don't fucking play this. There's no point. You broke the game. There's no point in doing it. Anyway.
You mentioned in one of the episodes quite recently, I think, that the AlphaGo story, and that basically the AI got so good and beat everyone and so on, and then the best Go players didn't even really understand the moves, but it's still it arrived at superhuman gameplay basically, and then humans figured out how to fool the AI and beat it again.
Yes.
Is that actually correct? I didn't look it up.
Fiat brought out that story, so you have to ask Fiat if it's actually real or fake
right.
news. Might be fake news.
All right.
But there's a fake news disclaimer in the show notes of each episode saying we're not liable for any.
All right. Yeah. No. I mean, there's a lot of work done on this actually currently in cognitive science. Basically, why are humans so good at certain things, and why are computers still really shitty at other things? And I think I think you mentioned this also with ChatGPT and all those kind of things. Mostly really good at producing noise and so on.
Yeah.
And there's I think you should. I'll send you one or two things. Maybe you'll have time to look into it, because basically the argument that is being made is that it's kind of, when I say it out loud, you will probably say it's very obvious, but there's more to it, and I'm just very bad at explaining it. You're basically using heuristics a lot to make sense of the world, and all the AI systems do too. And the thing about the thing that makes you cognitively the thing that makes you really good and really smart and really awesome at figuring things out is the same engine. It's the same thing that can also fool you and is responsible for your own self-deception, basically. And that's what AI systems also run into. They become self-deceptive in a while, and that's what you mentioned with, I'm not sure if the story is true, but it might be, because you can what you actually need to overcome self-deception is introspection and reflection, and all those systems are really bad at that.
Or a good punch in your face, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what will lead you to the
right. So don't forget about the punch in the face. That's the good part. And so then sure.
But that's basically once you can, as the human, figure out how the AI will deceive itself into thinking it's winning, then you have the upper hand again. And I think that's what you mentioned. The guy figured out in some sense. So
yes.
So what basically my point with all this is, when I heard you guys talking about this, is all the cognitive science people will tell you that's obvious, because AI systems as of now don't have wisdom. They are only very, very smart, but they're not wise. So they lack. They don't know how to deal with their own self-deceptive tendencies that they need to have in order to be smart.
Right. So if an AI would use introspection, it wouldn't actually correct. It would only dilute the mechanism.
I think the point that the CogSci people would make is that you can't be infinitely smart or infinitely wise or those kind of things. It's basically you always dance on the edge of. I mean, there's also a reason why there's a thin line between the geniuses and the madmen of the world, right? Like and staying on that line is a constant process that involves self-correction and introspection and so on.
Yes, so
Fighting against self-deceptive processes that actually make you smart and also wise.
I would say that the correspondence with reality is for everybody an unknown until you perform the action to see if it actually corresponds with reality.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's an unsolvable the problem cannot be solved completely because.
Right. That was funny because there was once was at a like a blockchain hackathon thing, but they broadened their horizons to more stuff already, but it was still kind of blockchainy. But the blockchain thing was kind of dying out a bit, I think, so they included other stuff. And there was like this AI group and this prodigy kid who created a simulation where he had drones mining asteroids or what the fuck ever it was, and they were training themselves over time. They were like building this swarm, and he was using like AI to optimize the system. And there it's like it's like, yes, it's nice if you can run a computer model, but if those are real drones that go out in space and they have to do all this trial and error shit, you're gonna end up with a lot of broken drones drifting into space. It's gonna be a very expensive way to tackle this problem.
Yeah, asteroid mining is still a little bit out, but the gold bugs are still wrong and doomed. So you heard it here first.
So, people, according to Gigi, Bitcoin is minimal viable as digital gold, so we don't have to worry about it. And
we should also improve it.
And we should also improve it so Michael Saylor can still suck it. And the Warcraft 3 aesthetics.
Time?
I'm not sure. At least it's time to end.